Woo! It is your crossroads between sex and the strange. It is none other than Sexoterica, an all-new show coming to you by Sovryn. And if it's by Sovryn, well, there's got to be at least one Sovryn, but I got it even better for you. I've got two Sovryns.
Bam!
Bam! I like that. Kick it up a notch. Bam! So, Sexoterica, you have Dr. Brian Sovryn as well as
Ellen Sovryn?
Yes. And this is going to be something of a surprise because I don't think we really announced this at all, that this is going to be coming.
I think we talked about it a long time ago.
Maybe a long time. Yeah. I mean, we used to do like Sovryn Tech X together, which was, you know, kind of in this vein. And actually a lot of what I think we're going to talk about here sort of would get talked about in those episodes. You know, like somehow we'd always end up talking about like aliens or some shit. Right.
Sure, but now we have our own dedicated show where we can spend time talking about all this weird crap that we just get stuck on in your normal STX recordings.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so now we have our own show for this whole thing. And this is pretty exciting. Now, first episode here, so we don't have video at the moment. And that's entirely due to just some technical issues in the studio.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Oh, believe me, this...
We don't need it.
No, this feels so good. I mean, I'm going to put up I'll put some video up so that people that watch it on YouTube, you know, have something like to see on their TV screens, I suppose. But
you make pretty good AI art of me in particular.
Oh, did you? Oh, yeah. I sent you that earlier, didn't I? Oh God, I made that so long ago. I have other ones. Those are...
I knew it. You've got a whole back catalog.
I do. I should put that up on our OnlyFans. Like that. I should put those because some of them get pretty kinky. But
what? I can't believe you even shared them with me.
I was experimenting. Early days. This was super early days. I don't even think ChatGPT 4 was like really out yet. Like this was, years ago.
I mean, can ChatGPT get that kinky?
I couldn't tell you if ChatGPT could get that kinky. Though I guess that's what I use, so I guess it could. But I mean, it didn't get like that kinky. Like it couldn't go that far.
It wasn't like Hugh Cow level.
Not exactly. No comment. If there was any
those eyes look pretty shifty.
Yeah. If there was any Hugh Cow action, I get disappointed. We don't need to get lost on this, but like one of the reasons I actually originally like got a Pixel 9 was because it has a built-in like, you know, local LLM studio that will generate, that makes images. But people, when they first released it, you could make anything. And I mean, fucking anything on it, as crazy as you wanted. But then people started complaining and Google's like, oh no, screw that. And like, even now you still can't really do people, in the app. And so it's almost pointless. But anyway, speaking of doing people,
I like to do people.
I know you do.
Humans in particular.
Right. In particular. Yeah. I mean, that wasn't zero sum, but anyway.
I'll accept lizard people or Nords.
I love it. Wow. That Skyrim is for the Nords.
I don't know if we're talking about the same Nords here.
Oh, those Nords. Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, here, let's talk about what the hell this show actually is.
What is it?
Okay, What is it going to be about? And I think, well, really, it comes down to this, to my mind, and you can tell me if you feel any differently. Like, my two favorite things in the world, you know, I mean, things and not like people. Like, obviously, you're my favorite thing in the universe, you know, if I'm going to express it that way. Mm-hmm. But my two favorite things are sex is easily at the top of the list. And then after that is like, you know, mysticism, the strange, all of that. But honestly, I don't think most people realize that like sex plays into all of this shit, in a very real way.
I think most people would have guessed video games for you as number two.
Yeah, I always call myself like gamer first, historian second, tech journalist third. That needs to be altered just a little bit. Not saying gamer would fall out of number one, but yeah, it's still up there. But really, those are my two favorite things, like to just engage in. And again, they're very much related.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, those are also my two favorite things.
Right. Right. And so, and actually when we get to the back half of the show, or more in the middle, and we're going to try and keep this show generally tight to an hour, or approximately an hour. But, we'll talk about kind of wait a minute, like, how did we even get into mysticism and the strange and all that? Like you in particular, Ellen, and again, we'll talk about it later after the ad break, have had quite a journey, including even recently. You've been deep diving on some particular psionic individuals, shall we say. So we'll talk about all of that later. But I mean, I think, basically it's going to be a show that's going to have at least 2 parts, sometimes 3. The first part we'll get into talking, honestly, we're going to talk about sex, talk about like health, some science in there and everything. And I'm hesitant. Do you have anything you want to say to that?
Yeah, I think you're hitting at it. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about sex, health, relationships, love, all the great things in life, and of course, approaching it from a scientific perspective. And we're going to keep the show pretty regimented. Right. We're going to have segments that have set time limits. So I hope you're keeping track of the clock. I am. Because this is going to be a challenge for us. We usually do like 2 or 3 hour long episodes.
Just get talking.
But we're gonna stay on topic this time around. Yes. And we're also going to shift from the scientific perspective of thinking over to the esoteric and the strange and things that are unexplained.
Right.
So I think it's going to be an interesting combination for people, because I feel like this is a common thread that runs throughout history, that some of the most famous scientists are also really into the occult.
Oh, yes.
And I think we're just carrying on that tradition by doing this show.
100%. 100%. I mean, and, there's easy names we can cherry pick. Most people would say like Isaac Newton, mm-hmm. Or you could bring up Jack Parsons, who thought he was the Antichrist. I mean, which right on, man. I'm
Very
with you.
Cool.
But
there's more than one.
Right. Because, the book of Revelation says there's Antichrist. Anyway, or should I say the New Testament says that? But anyway, we'll save that for some other time. But yeah. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people really miss. And something I want to address quickly here, just at the opening, is, I remember actually just maybe 2-3 years ago, I made quite a big screed against like, the world doesn't need another relationship show. I think relationship shows are stupid, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was really, really livid about mm-hmm. it. But here's the thing, not that I've in any way come full circle, but in some ways this show, so I'll try and be very brief on this. So I have this kind of internal model, not Cindy Crawford. I mean, like, I have this internal model of like the framework of how, shall we say, like human interactions kind of occur. And there's like different levels to it. Okay. So you have like level 3, or really there's level 4 and level 5. Like level 5 is very interpersonal relationships, people that Dunbar number, that sort of thing.
Is this like the 8-fold fence?
What's the 8-fold fence?
10-fold fence.
10-fold. What is that?
It's a Japanese, it's like a way of...
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Maintaining privacy when you live in a very crowded culture. And then there's, the heart that you show to everyone else, right, and the heart that you show to your family and friends, and then one that's secret and private. Yeah,
then there's the secret desire that you never speak, unless it's to the dead.
Right, you have your 3 different hearts in your 8-fold fence. So
Right. Okay. Yeah, I know what
privacy, a lot of many different faces.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's not exactly that, as brilliant as that is. I mean, Satan bless the Japanese. So what this is like, so you have level 5 that's kind of, again, more interpersonal Dunbar number style stuff. You have level 4, which is sort of the broader like society, civilization outside of that. Then you have level 3, which is like governments, corporations, corporatism in general. Then you have level 2, which would be like secret societies, alphabet soup organizations, CIA, things like that. And then you have level 1, which is actually the spiritual realm. Now, is there a level 0? Yes, but I'm not going to tell you what that is right now. So, but I bring this up to basically say that I think relationships are what, create, shall we say, problems within like level 3, level 2. Like the reasons that level 3 and level 2 like even exist are because of broken relationships. And, it's because of heartache. It's because of lack of interpersonality. I've always said that the world is suffering from 2 things. 1, people don't tell each other what they really feel. 2, it's a lack of touch, like a genuine lack of touch. Okay. And so again, all I'm saying here is that I think it's important to talk about relationships because they're at the core of all solutions to all problems.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And the interesting thing about what you're saying is that even within those organizations that rely on authority and on, hierarchies of power, relationships in general don't really follow the same rules. So any individual at any level within those structures that you mentioned can fall prey to a relationship changing their behavior.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they're that powerful that they supersede any rules.
Exactly. That's, you hit it. And that's why I think it is important. Like if we're actually going to have, be healthy, happy, housed, all that, like the things that are birthright, shall we say, of, sapient beings. Okay. You have to solve relationships. Like that, because happiness starts with that. And it doesn't have to be like, I know, we're going to talk a ton about sex. Okay. But like, it doesn't even have to be a sexual relationship, just relationships, interpersonality in general.
Yeah. I mean, relationships aren't like a problem that has to be solved, right? It's more of a consistent interaction. And what is the nature and quality of that interaction?
Exactly.
And like, are both sides of that relationship getting their needs met?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I say it's important. Yes. Like as much as I didn't want to talk about relationship shows, years ago, like, no, it needs to be talked about. Like, because this is at the core, like anything that you think is a problem, anything that you think is somehow evil, not that there's good and evil, but anything that you think, within that, like it generally stems from, some kind of broken heart in some way, some kind of disappointment within a relationship, things like this. So this is a very important thing to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to be reading emails from people who are talking about their relationship issues and giving them advice. That's not the kind of show.
Yeah, no, this isn't a Dear Ann editorial, by no means.
Yeah, it's more so just about like understanding relationships in general and how they can be healthy or healthier. Right.
And it's important to explore all this because like these are things we need new terms for. Like we could get lost in this subject forever. And I do want to talk about it, get into it more at some point, but we have, like the issues of a lack of human happiness, which boy, if that's never been more true, they stem from very core things that most people don't even think about. But that's where the mysticism comes in.
Yeah. So like people who live their lives with relationship issues consistently, you could almost make the argument that they're being like pulled away from the spiritual side of life, right? They're
100%.
They're, kind of forced in a way to focus more on the present and on like materialism and maybe on their unhappiness and not necessarily the empowerment that is positive relationships, that is spirituality and the esoteric. Right.
Yeah. And so these things need to be explored because again, like you have level 1, where there are, if we're to use the term, spiritual forces out there. There are things that affect you that you don't always see, or that you're so stuck in the material and the mechanistic that you can't see them,
Yeah. You don't allow for the possibility in your mind.
Right. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to explore mysticism. We'll talk about practical things. There's so many things that we're going to get into. And that's one of the key things I really want for this, both to highlight the strange and high strangeness, but also to provide some practical information, when it makes sense to do so. And it's just fun. And every once in a while,
it is fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And every once in a while, we'll bring in some entertainment as well, because entertainment is, as Francis Ford Coppola said, entertainment, like movies are magic. And he meant magic with a K at the end. Like, he wasn't just saying like, ooh, fancy special effects. No, he meant it's fucking magical. It's mystical. It's esoteric. And so you have Sexoterica all wrapped up into one.
Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead, unless there's anything else you want to get in right now, Ellen, why don't we go ahead and hit our first break, and then we'll come back and start talking up some other stuff.
Can't get enough of the Sovryn universe? Wanted to see it get even hotter? It's time for you to head over to OnlyFans for the most uncensored content in Sovryn history, including mind-melting photo sets of Dr. Miriam Goldblossom and her wild, raw videos that will send your rockets out of the ionosphere, along with exclusive episodes that are too hot for those other platforms. This is the Sovryn universe you've been waiting for. Starring Miri Goldblossom. Head over to miri.xxtech.net to experience it all. That's miri.xxxtech.net. And you might want to bring a mop.
Woo, and we are back. I want to get into how we got here.
How did any of us get here?
Yeah, right. All right.
Isn't
that might
the
be
question we're all trying to answer.
That might be a little deeply philosophical for 8 p.m. Eastern. so maybe we won't go there. But
the show is only an hour long.
Exactly. So. But how did we get to the point that, wait a minute, what are Ellen and Brian, who have been podcasting or on the radio for over a decade,
That's right.
Yeah, damn straight it is.
How did we get to this point?
Yeah.
This breaking point.
Exactly. Like, what the hell are we doing? These incredible rational beings out here talking about mysticism and the esoteric and the high strange and all that. How did that happen? And I want to get into that, but I think before we do, maybe we can talk about some of what we did. And if you don't mind, Ellen, I'm going to be pretty explicit about a recent holiday that we recognized.
So I think this is going to be super interesting if we do end up talking about rituals that we have enacted. Because this is something that I have never talked about with anyone besides you. Oh,
you're right. Oh, boy. Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. You're good?
I'm sure.
Okay. Well, then we're going to do it.
So yeah, how did you get into the esoteric and magic in general? Like, what got you started? Do
you want me to start with that, and then we'll talk about the holiday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. You know what? I think that's the better way. I had it written up to do it the other way around, but I like this. I think this is better.
It's more of a gentle lead-in.
Yeah. Especially if somehow someone has never heard us before, like this is going to make way more sense. Okay. So how did I get started in mysticism? Well, honestly, most people, even in the Western world, certainly in the Eastern world, it's a whole other thing. What do those terms even mean? It doesn't matter. But I think to this day, most people are still brought up at least somewhat religious. Even if it's not like really fundamentalist or structured, they're brought up somewhat religious. Okay. Now, I was born in 1981. At that point, I feel like in America, everybody was brought up religious. But regardless, so I was born and raised Jewish most of my young life. There was a point not long after my bar mitzvah where my parents converted to Christianity. They converted to Seventh-day Adventism. Which makes sense because Seventh-day Adventists, even though they're Christians, they still celebrate the Sabbath. And the thing is, and I'm going to try and keep this super, super brief, but my father was, he was carrying down, like, it's weird that he became a Christian because he was carrying down a lot of, in Judaism, there's a lot of oral knowledge. Now, people can say, oh, well, yeah, but that's the oral Torah and that's in the Mishnah. No, even in the Mishnah, it talks about how there is knowledge that was not written down even in the Mishnah. Okay. And even in the Talmud, it's never been written down. And so my father, who, worked on the Voyager program, NASA scientist, the whole thing. Okay. He was carrying down from his family, from our, generations upon generations, thousands of years, he's carrying down this knowledge, and he passed on quite a bit of it to me. I can't say by any means that he passed it all down, but there was a lot of it that he passed on down to me. And Kabbalah was a major aspect of that. And so even as a teenager, even though, when you in rabbinicism, you're not supposed to learn about Kabbalah until like you're in your 40s, okay, which is where I'm at now. I was already like skipping ahead of the line, and I was picking up, books and just diving in, going crazy. What actually got me started on it was Zecharia Sitchin, which when I was a teenager, I read The 12th Planet, what started his journey in studying the Anunnaki and the ancient aliens and all this crap. And I don't think that there are like, aliens coming from faraway star systems by any stretch. Like that's just not in my worldview. Okay. But what he wrote was absolutely fascinating. And his journey started with Torah, just like you could say mine did. And he's the one that got me reading like, okay, wait a minute, we're supposed to read these texts completely differently. And then you start to like, read, Kabbalah. And at the time, there weren't a whole lot of books on Kabbalah. They were in English anyway. And my Hebrew wasn't that great growing up. So I started reading all of those, but like, I basically, I feel like I was being handed, even at a young age, I was being handed like this really, powerful information, from teacher to student in a way, father, son. And it was related to Kabbalah, it was part of Kabbalah. And so, I'm reading all these texts and yeah, you can't not read that stuff and not walk away changed. Like, wow, like I everything you think, especially when your worldview as a Jew, like revolves around Torah, and then you suddenly realize actually none of this is meant to be taken literally. It all means something else. That really gets you on that journey. And I mean, I've experienced things that are absolutely unexplained, and so that, and I mean, even at a young age. And so, combine that with my background in Kabbalah, and that's really what got me, started on this whole thing. And there's times where I've had to be quiet about it. There's times where, I mean, and one of the beautiful things, speaking of the power of relationships, is you gave me, you, Ellen, you gave me like this really judgment-free zone to just like let all this stuff out and be able to speak the unspokens and say things that, as much as like I know they're true, that I've never verbalized ever, and so that's been a really, really powerful experience for me. And as far as like how it got me to this point, I mean, that may be the key thing. And that's also, again, speaking back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, why I think relationships are so important, because you need those. You need the other to be able to explore the self. And without exploring the self, without knowing the self, you're fucked. So anyway, that's my journey. Okay. Very, very briefly, very quickly, and it's super basic. That didn't get into, I actually became friends with Zecharia Sitchin. I mean, like the amount of research and study that I've done on all of Torah, Talmud Torah, Kabbalah, and a million other esoteric traditions and lineages. I could go on forever, but anyway, if you're a listener of my other shows, the score as far as that goes in my pedigree. So Ellen, do you want to get into how did you get interested in the mystical, the esoteric, in magic?
Yeah, I do, but I think I'd like to ask you first before we move on, if you want to just share as an example, like one of those unexplained moments in your life where you had an experience that you felt contributed to your interest in the esoteric.
Oof.
It can just be a quick one. It doesn't have to be anything too complicated.
Sure. Nothing too complicated.
I know that's kind of a misnomer. They're all incredibly complex.
Yeah, they're all very yeah. How about I'll just be very brief with this one. I have talked to the supposed dead. Like I've had full on conversations with someone who was supposedly dead. Whether or not that person actually was and whether or not they're immortal is another question. Because I do think that there are humans that have achieved immortality. I think there's actually a long list, in fact, a growing list of those that have. So get ready for that, folks. But that would be one of those things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Yep. I'll just put that there. So do you have another question, or do you want to start diving into, how did you get into this? Because I mean, you have a very deep, learned science background.
Yeah.
And you are an incredibly rational person, very logical person.
Thank you.
No, you are. You really are. I mean, really, your logic and rationality is only superseded, I think, by your beauty. So.
Wow. I'm blushing over here. Thank you. So I'll say that I suppose I grew up kind of similar to you in the sense that I was raised religious. So I started out for 3 years in elementary school. I went to a place called Calvary Baptist School, which was a private school, which, obviously was Baptist. And I learned that the Bible was very literal and that you weren't supposed to ask questions, but we were at the same time learning to appreciate like God's creation and the nature of love and infinity and eternity, like all of these things that were just too big for my 9-year-old brain to comprehend,
But you're supposed to get baptized, to like dedicate your life to
and
God.
I did. I got baptized.
Right.
Yeah.
And even though what adult brain even could handle these concepts, but yeah, you're having the confidence of, getting baptized and dedicating your soul. Anyway, continue.
At the same time, I was trying to understand these concepts that I wasn't supposed to ask questions on. Reflecting on this, I can tell maybe as a potentially undiagnosed autistic child, I spent a lot of time alone outside, and I always felt the spirit of everything. Like when I was out in the forest by myself, I'd pay close attention to all of the creatures that were around me, like the flowers, the butterflies, the trees. So it just felt like a very spiritual experience to me.
Sure.
Like I could communicate with the trees, like I was Pocahontas or something.
Yes.
And I do have that Native American lineage, and that's something that I've always kind of kept in the back of my brain that, this is something that's important to me, that's kind of central to my being. And I've always tried to embody that and kind of identify with it in a way. It's more so about the mentality of just respecting the life that's around you.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. You are a descendant of Pontiac. I mean, you are a genuine Native American princess, but keep going.
Yes, that's all true. Every word of it. So that's kind of where I started out. And then, life got hard. My family kind of fell apart. I felt like I needed to do something to make a lot of money that was very reliable. So I decided to become a chemical engineer. And that's something that I spent years preparing for, even though I didn't graduate college until, 2020. So pretty recently. But from the age of 15 up, I was reading Ayn Rand. I was, taking all of the accelerated courses in school.
Right.
Spending all of my time studying and reading, not going out to movies or hanging out with people at the mall. So I very much focused on the rational aspect of my being. And for a time, I kind of became an Ayn Rand robot. Just because I felt objectivism made so much sense. And then
I was in the same boat. Yeah.
Yeah. So years later, I realized there's this whole side of life that's missing from objectivism. And that is love and the irrational and things that can't be explained, like feelings.
Yeah. Right. Emotions.
Yeah. So that's something where I started reading Nathaniel Branden, and then that kind of got me started on a path. And I think it didn't really evolve for me until I was probably a few years later, I had become friends with you, which, of course, that's influential in some ways. Like, I wanted to be your friend. I wanted to impress you. And, like, I was also interested in everything that you were saying because I had just never heard anyone say things like that before. So I started to, I think, open my mind a little. And of course, drug experiences do that on some level, like taking LSD for the first time or MDMA, these sorts of things give you an ecstatic experience that you don't get to feel when you're just being your rational, normal self. So I knew that the world and like the experiences possible to us was more expansive than just the logical and scientific, but I didn't really know where to go with that. So yeah, I started to open my mind at a certain point more to the possibility that maybe there's more to existence than just what we can see and what we can experience with experiments, like measuring things or material things. And one of the really powerful experiences that pushed me further down this path was I had gone to Salem for a witch
Salem,
tour.
Mass.
Yeah, Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I went to the witch city for a witch tour.
Yes.
And of course it was Halloween or close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go on Halloween. It's insane.
Oh, it's crazy there. We've been there many times, and it's madness. Can't even park.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went on this witch tour, and they just kind of show you around Salem, whatever. But then afterwards, I had a tarot card reading from somebody who worked at the shop, who is an official witch. And I still to this day don't understand exactly what happened or how or why. But this woman basically pulled out a few cards and was able to describe to me the exact emotional dilemmas that I was facing in this very specific part of my life, which had to do with like you and your girlfriend at the time and my girlfriend at the time and some complicated things that were happening. And it was, I don't know how to describe it, but it changed me.
It was so on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She knew nothing about me, and it wasn't as if she was using generic language that could fit any situation.
Right.
It was very much on the nose. And I think after hearing that, I was in shock for a while. But then I started to realize, like, there's got to be something to this. So that's when I started to really get into, like, understanding what magic is.
Right.
And I think since then I've spent a lot of time reading books, learning from you, obviously, because you have a lot of, traditional Jewish knowledge, which is something that my family didn't have.
Sure.
And also reading really strange things about like psychics and magical symbolism. So it's been a journey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if I can share, you've been big on Ingo Swann's work lately.
Oh, yeah. His work is fascinating.
Yeah.
I trust him implicitly.
Yeah.
Implicitly. Yeah. If you listen to his books, he is so rational and explains himself so incredibly well. I just feel there's no doubt in my mind that he experienced what he says he experienced.
Sure.
And also, like, his credentials, his resume, if you will, is impressive enough to lend credence to everything he's saying.
Right.
Because, like, the government wouldn't hire him repeatedly to do, like, psychic experiments if he wasn't actually helping them. Yeah.
I think he's really one of the great, like, introducers to this realm, to the psychic realm, the psionic realm, the spiritual realm, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah, he's a great educator.
Yeah.
Like, he wrote the book Psychic Literacy,
yep.
which is just an introductory book basically to tell you what does psychic mean, what does it not mean, and then, like, here's some common ways that you can experience it.
Yeah. I mean, even I've been inspired to reread his books because they've come out with, like, updated, expanded editions. I mean, unfortunately, he's, passed now. But Yeah, tremendous books if anyone wants to get started, somewhere on this journey. Like, Psychic Literacy and Penetration is the other one that I think is just phenomenal, to dive into. So do you want to, so I guess you already sort of shared with me, like what a powerful experience that you had that you couldn't explain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this is the reality, is that I think everybody experiences something that they just cannot explain. But we live in a world where in general, society doesn't give you the permission to talk about it. And it doesn't give you the permission because people will laugh at you or they'll try to explain it away.
Yeah. And this is something that Ingo talks about a lot too, mm-hmm. is it's almost conspiratorial in the way that there's so much negativity towards experiences that are not typical.
Right.
It's not just that people are in disbelief, they'll mock you for it.
Yes.
They'll disavow you. They'll say that you're crazy. And it really does keep this whole subculture so quiet. Even
sure.
though the majority of people have experienced these unexplained phenomena, nobody's willing to talk about it. And I really think it's wonderful that you and I have this environment where we can talk about the strange and unexplained things. And we've said things that we know is absolutely batshit insane.
Yeah.
But we still say them because we trust each other.
Yeah.
To not have that, not to scoff at it or laugh it off or be in disbelief.
Right.
Like we hold space for the potential for anything to happen.
Yeah. I mean, and it'll happen at random moments where we'll just stop each other and just be like, well, this is an experience that I had,
We have a lot of synchronicities.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll certainly talk about those, in the future, as the show goes on. But I mean, like they're very emotional moments because we've never felt comfortable before saying them to each other,
mm-hmm. It's terrifying. You're stepping over a ledge into the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's an amazing thing that we have things like podcasts now, and so many different, advancements in technology to where so much of this information can get out there. Because before, you had like some of the books that I read when I was younger that led me, even more down this path would be like the works of Brad Steger, like the Star People, Starseed, all that. And in that, there's times where he would reference, it's like, oh, this very famous author would write into me and tell me about this, and you could say, oh, he's bullshitting us. He's making up the story. But no, later on, the authors would come out and say who they were that wrote to him,
wow.
and they were famous authors or they were famous or they were celebrities or they were this or that, and these were very like guys like Philip K. Dick and like other people. I mean, which I say that name and people are gonna be like, yeah, but he went off his rocker, well, did he? But I mean, like there's so many cases of this where now like you can be more open, and fortunately like now, we can interact with people, or at the very least, like the voices don't have to get laughed at anymore. And I think another goal really for me with this show is to normalize this shit.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
Right. Like, I mean, I want to be, like Gordon White so brilliantly said, I want to be like the guy in Ghostbusters who's like the head of the EPA that goes into the Ghostbusters basement and opens and shuts down the whole thing, the whole trap, and sets all the ghosts free. It's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's just set all this shit free. You know what I mean? Because science has value, right? But there's more to life than science. People make true statements all the time that have nothing to do with science, that are not part of the scientific method. Okay. And there's truth all over the place. And that includes in the realm of the mystical and the esoteric. And we need to really set that free, because honestly, I feel like science is choking us right now.
Doubt has been so ingrained in people
that
it's second nature. When you bring up something that sounds like unreal or it's outside of their worldview,
right.
It's almost immediate. You can sense when people are scoffing, even if they're not saying anything. They're dismissing you on some level. And yeah, the scientific method, which I've been like professionally trained in, it's very much you write down numbers and you look around and you see what's happening and you describe it very thoroughly. But there's always uncertainty, and nobody really understands where all of this uncertainty comes from.
Exactly.
Even in mathematical equations. And I think that's something that is fascinating that I will never get over. because like I spent so many years studying deep maths, and there's just strange things that happen that you cannot quantify. And that's true in other areas of life as well. Right.
So, I mean, there's value in all of it, but like there's whole swaths that get ignored, and they get ignored at our peril. And, you know, for example, like if you have an encounter with something that is level 1, like I talked about earlier, what's your reaction going to be if you have no framework, no frame of reference for that? It's going to be fear, you know, like you're not going to know, or most likely it's going to be fear. You're not going to know how to handle it. You're not going to know how to engage it. And I think it's important for people to recognize A, that it exists, and B, what do I do? How do I handle this? You know, and that's when maybe we can start putting together life more efficaciously and, you know, have a world of love instead of a world of fear, you know, filled with so much fear.
Yeah. And I think another part to this too is that there is a war that is being waged.
Oh, yes.
That people are in general not aware of.
Right.
And if they started to become aware of certain aspects of their being that played into the, like what is being battled over, they might feel more control in their lives.
Yeah.
You know, more personal control.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think kind of last thing I want to say on this, and then we need to talk about some Lagbomer, is, you know, you and I come out of a background, a very libertarian background, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I don't think we identify that way, you know, anymore. But
we're total anarchists at this point.
Right,
There's
right.
no libertarian. There's no minarchist here.
Yeah, no. This is raw anarchism. But we come out of that background, and there was a time frame where that seemed like, wow, this is actually getting some traction. But what ended up happening? No, everybody just became either Trumpers, or maybe even they went to the left or something like that. And it's sad because like you had people who seemed to be ready to like, all right, yeah, there's level 3, but that's not like really the authority I need to be worried about. I need to be worried about what's happening on level 2. Or maybe I don't even have to worry about that, because what's level 2 worried about? They're worried about what's happening on level 1. And so, you know, I consider it tragic that a lot of people have, you know, just fallen prey to the material, the political, you know, into so many things with that actually has no, I mean, it has effect, but it's not the cause. And they've stopped looking at the cause. I don't want to use a phrase like strike the root, but you know, they've stopped looking at the cause, and that's where you need to look at level 1. And level 1 is where all the high strain shit happens. So
yeah. And it's also interesting that you'll never learn about level 0, like what is actually the causative agent for some of these invisible things that are happening. You'll never learn about it in public school or on the news or in any sort of media. Like nobody talks about this, and that's kind of the conspiratorial part. It's like, wait a minute, why is nobody talking about, you know, the things that are actually causing all of these other effects?
Right. Exactly. So there's a lot to unpack, and well, we're in this for the long haul. we're in this for years and years and years, maybe for life, and who knows what's beyond that. So one of the things that people can do is through the act of ritual. Now, rituals are like a central part of magic with a K at the end.
Yeah, they're actions that focus your intentions.
Exactly. Right. And magic, all magic really is, you know, impressing your intentions upon the universe. And that's universe with a capital U, by the way. It's a superorganism. So you and I engage in rituals on the holidays that the real that sounded judgy. I was going to say the real holidays.
Yeah, you mean like the OG holidays, like the holidays that were created before Gregorian calendars were?
Exactly, yes. Right.
Okay.
These are holidays with completely different calendars. So some of these, you know, maybe as they come up, we'll talk about them. The most recent one to come up is what Jewish people would call Lag BaOmer. Now, it's a reference to a specific day within the month, the Jewish calendar of Omer. I am saying that it comes from a calendar even older than that. And we celebrated it, let's see, it would have been from Thursday night to Friday. And when you look into the origins of this holiday, nobody knows where it started. Like, just at some point it starts ending up in Hebrew texts, okay, or in Jewish texts, like in the Middle Ages, okay, in medieval times. So that's point one. When you don't know the origin of something, it's probably because it's been transmitted orally, like, and it just like kind of comes out of nowhere, which this is one of those cases that it did. But traditionally, within, like, if you talk to a modern day Jew, they would tell you, oh, well, we are celebrating the death, not like that we're happy that he died, but celebrating the life more so of Shimon Bar Yochai, who is considered one of the greatest rabbis in history. He lived in the 2nd century. He's what's known as a Tana, or one of the Tanaim. These are people who actually elucidated the Mishnah. Won't go into all of that. There's huge conversations that could be had around that. Of course, the greatest rabbi, and for those that don't know, the greatest rabbi in Jewish history is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was actually the teacher of Shimon Bar Yochai. And so that just shows you like how close to the greatness, how close to the source this guy was. Shimon Bar Yochai, depending upon who you ask, is claimed to be the author of the Zohar, of the book of Zohar, which is a central Kabbalistic text. It's not like one little book that you can carry around. This is multiple volumes, and the Zohar, there's so much of the Zohar, honestly, that has never been written down. Now, other people will say this isn't going to be like a big history lesson on the Zohar, because people say, no, it's actually written by Moses de Leon or whatever. Anyway, that's all yada, yada, yada. We can get into that in the future. So Shimon Bar Yochai, incredibly powerful individual. I mean, to the point that like there's a story where he's coming out of a cave and he's like literally setting the world on fire. I mean, like fire coming out of his eyes. I mean, it's just like this insane stuff. There's so many stories I can get into around Shimon Bar Yochai, but we don't need to do that. What I want to talk about is the ritual that we engaged in, because the purpose of a lot of what Shimon Bar Yochai went through was to engage in the Kabbalistic concept of tikkun. Okay, tikkun is the idea, or tikkun olam, is the idea that we are repairing the universe. And this gets done through, one of the ways that this gets done actually is through the sexual act, through the expression of energies, the exchanging of energies through the orgasm, and most importantly, through the orgasm of the woman, that basically like starts putting all of these shards back together. And I know everybody's like, oh, I got a million questions about this. And look, we'll get to them at some point in the future. Okay. But we're trying to be brief and just bring this in. And
it's really interesting you say that, because the majority of the practices that we've engaged in just talk about you orgasming, the man.
Yes.
Or the priest, the high priest.
Yeah. So, and it's a great point, because like this is where, you know, like even in these texts that a lot of these rituals come from, just like with Torah, the Zohar, or any mystical text, it could even be like a Golden Dawn text or something. There's what's between the lines. Okay. And like, it's an assumption. So like, okay. So really quickly. So in Torah, this is where Judaism can differ wildly from Christianity, is that if a woman, if a wife in a marriage, you know, obviously she's wife in a marriage, if a wife is not pleased sexually, she has the right to request a divorce. Now that's anathema in the Western world, right? Like, what? Just because she's not pleased sexually? No, that's true. And so the idea is, now again, you don't take Torah literally, okay? But the point of that, the mystical interpretation of that, is that the woman's going to orgasm anyway. Like, that's guaranteed, because if she doesn't, you have broken all of the laws. Like, all the laws thrown in the air. Fuck it. You screwed up, daddy.
I love it.
Yeah, right. So do I. So,
you have to make me come.
Exactly.
It's against the law not to.
Right. So when you see, like, in these texts, you know, that I translate and whatever, when you see these, and it doesn't talk about the woman orgasming, it's because it's going to happen. Like, and if it doesn't, the whole priesthood fucked everything up and nothing matters. Okay.
You're a bunch of Adam 1s over here.
Yeah. Whoa. Adam 1. Wow. Just bringing in all the terms. Yeah. We'll get into Adam 1 and Adam 2s.
You just missed the point.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Get out of the Garden of Eden. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a whole other story that, again, most people get dead wrong.
I can't wait to talk about that in the future.
Yes. Yeah, because people get that dead wrong. So, yeah, so that's why. Like, and it's a fair question of you to ask. You know, like, wait a minute, why isn't it about the woman coming? It's like, no. Everything is about the woman coming. You know, like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Because your orgasm is what transmits, shall we say, the energy. And again, language fails. And we're at that point already. But just to try and wrap it up.
Oh, you can feel the energy.
Yeah, right. Right. There's so much I want to say. We were going to do a review of Kingdom of Heaven. Maybe we don't need to do that right now, but because I want to keep going with this. This is fun to talk about.
Okay, if you want to save the Kingdom of Heaven for another time, we can do that.
Right. So we engage in this ritual, and yes, like there is so I come from, my lineage is of the priesthood. I am a Levite. I'm not only a Levite, I am a Kohanim. Okay. Now this isn't something that I choose.
It's your genetic lineage.
Exactly. Okay. Like this is what I was born into. I did not choose this at all. And there's times where I have wrestled with that.
So what does it mean to be genetically Kohanim?
Yeah. Okay. So modern Jews, I'll be very quick. Modern Jews, you have that comprises 3 tribes. Like everybody knows the 12 tribes of Israel. There's actually 13. The 13th is the Levites. That's the priesthood. Okay. So modern Jews consist of 3 tribes. The other tribes, nobody knows exactly what happened to them. I have some idea, but that's another conversation for another time. You have Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. You have the tribe of Judah. That's where the word Jew comes from. And then you have the Levites. Okay. So, in Judaism, very particularly, your tribe is decided by your matrilineal lineage. Okay. And so you're a Levite if your mother was a Levite. Okay. Or if your mother was of the tribe of Benjamin, you'd be technically of the tribe of Benjamin. All right. And this is without getting into, well, wait a minute. If like the mother isn't Jewish at all, is the child Jewish? Rabbinicism would say, no, the child is not a Jew, even though the father's Jewish.
So what special skill sets or powers or abilities do you get as a Levite that is Kohanim?
Sure. Okay. So very quickly, to be a Kohanim, like there's Levites, which is the priesthood. Kohanim is even a level like kind of above that, which would be like the high priesthood. Okay. Like Aaron and his sons and so on in Torah. So your father has to be a Kohanim for you to be a Kohanim. The mother, even if the mother was like the child of a Kohanim, that doesn't make you a Kohanim. Like it's so fucking confusing. Anyway, the powers it's more responsibilities that come along with it, in that you have rituals that you are supposed to be leading, that you are supposed to be doing. Now, a lot of people, your average person thinks like, well, don't you need to have like a temple in Jerusalem to be able to do all this stuff? No, Kabbalah makes it abundantly clear that really the temple is wherever you lay down and fuck.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the temple.
That's our temple.
Yeah. And if you don't believe me, look at the structure of the supposed Jerusalem temples. And guess what? It's a person in a position to have sex. You can read about this. I mean, like this has just always been true. When the temple got destroyed, the temple became basically everywhere.
All right. When are you not in a position to have sex? Is what I want to know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I'm always ready. You know that. So... But
strange.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's part of your lineage.
Well, gets into odd things. But anyway, so yeah, I am to engage in, like these rituals are in a way my birthright. Like this is what I am supposed to be a part of. Now, this isn't me starting any kind of cult, because anybody can do this. There's always value in it. And again, I know there's going to be so many fucking questions around this, folks. You have to take the time. These are things that have been developed over thousands of years and passed down. And so much of it has even been lost, sadly. And I've been trying to rediscover a lot of it my whole life. So anyway, okay. So how this works is that you are repairing the universe. The universe is already beautiful, but it's the idea of making it more beautiful, making it more amenable to life. We're going to keep it that simple. Okay. And the idea is you're putting out that energy of, God, it sounds so kitschy when you say it like out loud, but bringing out like that energy of just happiness and joy that is literally repairing things. It is fighting against that entropy. It is that creative act, and creation is the opposite of destruction. Creation is happiness and joy. So the process that occurs within this and that we were engaging in is, there's a hand washing. We blow the shofar horn at first. There's a hand washing that occurs. And the idea is that the priesthood at the time, now, it's just you and me here, right?
Yeah. And we're like naked in the living room and you kind of blow the horn, but not really. And
yeah, I'm not, this horn sucks.
We've got like bottled Concord grape juice.
Yeah, right.
Vodkas from Manischewitz.
Look, we're being real ghetto about it for sure. And I mean a Jewish ghetto. Okay.
And our seat of mercy is like the armchair.
Oh, but it's a great seat.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, but this is the thing. We're practicing things. I'm sure there are people.
Our fireplace is electric.
Yeah.
It's not a real fire.
But the play's the thing, right?
Right. It's about the intentionality.
It is about the intention. Yes.
So when we practice it, we are fully naked as you're supposed to be.
Well, for Lag Bomer particularly, yes.
Well, for most of the rituals that we've done, I feel like there's at least minimal clothing, if not like none.
Yes, eventually, and eventually it does end up with like mostly no clothing, but
yeah, and like you've explained before, like this is traditionally done in the like temple in a very sort of niche community, like a very small chosen group of people. So you would be naked with other people in the area and there would be like orgies happening.
Yes.
But, it's just me and you at the time, which is fine.
Right.
Always recruiting new members to our cult.
See, this is the thing. So here's the thing. Is that not everybody needs to do this? That.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's meant to be a very private thing. It's meant to be done over. And without getting into the whole subject of should some practices, some mystical knowledge and mystical practices, should they never be written down? Yeah, I think some things should never be. In fact, some things can't be because they exist literally beyond language. And in fact, part of the point of these acts and why sex is such a central part of them is to get to that state in your head, which in Kabbalah you would call Hokmah consciousness, where you are beyond language, because that's when you're actually connecting with the superorganism that is the universe. There's no God, folks, calm down. Okay. But that's when you're actually connecting in this process. And so, yeah, we do it kind of ghetto, like you said. But we go through it, and it's representative in the life of Shimon Bar Yochai, being naked, he did that. Him and his son, they took off their clothes, they buried themselves in the sand and all this. So yeah, we engage in that. And then, we tell the story of Shimon Bar Yochai, and then it gets into okay, in honor of Shimon Bar Yochai, let's engage in Tikkun Olam. And the most powerful way to engage in Tikkun Olam is through the sexual act. Now, that is a process that occurs through the Sova, which is the female member of the priesthood, okay, receiving basically the seed, and there's different aspects of how to receive that, okay, receiving the seed of the priest, and then the Sova translates that through her own orgasm into this energy that is repairing the universe, kind of like you mentioned the Japanese earlier, kind of like the Japanese concept of where you fix broken dishes by lining them with gold, right? You glue them together with this gold. It's the same kind of idea. You're fixing these broken vessels that make up the universe. So do you have questions or comments you want to make, Ellen? Because you engage in this with gusto. You are you're in it, and I love it, and it just drives me wild.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's fascinating, just to read some of these things, almost for the first time.
Yeah.
Also, the level to which the ancients were aware of supernatural forces that played a role in the shaping of nature, not just natural forces, but the supernatural ones, the ones that can't be seen and can't exactly be defined. They're unknowable in a sense.
Right.
But you know them when they affect you.
Yes.
And I think that's the part that's kind of like supernatural that people can't exactly wrap their head around. But, the level to which the ancients understood that these things were very real and they played an important role in their daily existence, I love that. I fully appreciate how much of a central focus of their lives that, these supernatural forces were. And they truly integrated that into the way that they spoke and behaved and treated each other. And so I think that's really beautiful. But yes, the other side to that is that they fucked a lot and they were really freaky. And it's kind of cool.
Very freaky.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you like I literally tied you up and whipped you. 13 times.
It was representative of the suffering that he went through when he lived those 13 years in a cave.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's
one whipping for
so
for each year.
kinky.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and you enjoyed it too.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, and look, I mean, you could say like, well, what is this? Is this all just like justifications for perversion?
Yeah,
and
BDSM, Torah.
Right.
What the hell's going on here?
My argument is this.
It is BDSM.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. Like,
even the story about Metatron.
Oh, sure. Oh, man.
But I'm sorry. Continue.
We won't get lost on that. But this is the thing, is that when you talk to people, say, who are in the lifestyle of BDSM, they will tell you inversely to what we're describing. Inversely, they'll say it's the most spiritual experience I've ever had in my life. Mm-hmm. When like they get to that point of pain where they can't even think anymore, like suddenly they are connect. I mean, not always. Sometimes BDSM can be an expression of traumas and it's tragic and it's not good. Okay, like I want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
But for people who engage in it, and I'm being judgy, but in a healthy fashion, that's how they will always describe it. Is that, wow, like I went to a place that I've never been, and I think I was communicating with the divine. And I've never been on the whipping end, so I can't say that.
We can change that. If you'd like.
We could. But, like you can, and folks, I mean, look it up online. When you go online, granted, don't believe anything until proven otherwise, but, or everything is fake until proven otherwise. But regardless, you can look it up and you can get some idea of what people go through. There are great books to read about it as well. It existed before the internet was here. And, this is something that it's so that's my point, is that like you say, well, it's BDSM. Wait a minute. Or is BDSM the spiritual act? Like which came first? Yeah.
I think you can use BDSM as a way to spiritually bypass and get to that level. Mm-hmm. But in general, like when we practice, for example, it is a very spiritual act, and we know that. And part of the reason that we're able to act out these scenarios is that we trust and love each other.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I do want to, and we did a podcast recently. It was a real-time sovereign that back in January 2025 we did, where we talked about when we did LSD. Now I want to make two very quick points. One, when I mentioned earlier that I talked to somebody who was supposed to be dead, I was not on drugs.
Weren't on drugs.
And most of my life, up until the past year, I had actually never taken like really drugs of any kind.
Yeah, pretty much 1 year ago to the day.
Yeah, just about. Yeah, I've never taken entheogens, ever. Never did, marijuana, none of it. And so don't think I was like, under some kind of weird influence. But we talked about it when we were on LSD for the first, or for me, it was the first time, but you got to a place, we were having sex for hours, and I think you got to that place where like you were in touch with the divine after having so much fucking sex. You know what I mean? And after feeling, and it's not just the sex, it's feeling so much pleasure, whatever gets you there. It doesn't necessarily have to be sex. Okay. But I think it's maybe the most reliable act that we engage in. Also, there is some degree of energy transference that occurs.
We mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that we were going to talk about relationships. And I think it's important for us to make that connection between the esoteric, spiritual, and relationships. So
Right.
there is a level of spirituality that you can attain on your own, but then there's the next level, which you can only obtain when you're in a loving relationship.
Yes. Yeah. You need that other. And because that itself even creates like a third being.
Right.
And that's something we definitely want to talk about in the future because, like when we encounter others, who maybe want to engage with us, say in such ways or whatever, like a lot of times people don't understand. There's not just, it's like when Torah says, that the man and the woman come together and they become one flesh. Okay. What that really is saying is it creates this third being. That is what the world actually engages with. It's this Brian-Ellen that exists. What do you got?
Right. And it's not necessarily just you and me combined like as a single being, right? It's kind of greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes. Yeah. It's emergent. It's an emergent property for sure. And that's a really key thing to understand. And when that third being is created, I mean, yeah, like there's so much more that can suddenly open up, in each individual, and in it's the only language I can use for it. That third being kind of protects you, in being able to be vulnerable more. And it just kind of soaks up those vulnerable. It's a beautiful thing. And
yeah, it really takes away fear.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It emboldens you.
Right. And that's really it is you want that kind of protector so that you can be vulnerable. It's very hard. I mean, you could say it's easy to be vulnerable alone, but it's not easy to explore those vulnerabilities alone.
It is not easy to be vulnerable when you're alone.
Yeah, right.
Because who's going to comfort you?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's going to dry your tears and get you tissues so you can blow your snot nose?
Yeah.
Which, like, you've done for me so many times, and I really love that about you.
Right.
And, like, you're able to just hear it and be there for me. And having that outside other presence is comforting, It's it is what sets you free of the prison that is your own mind, Right. It kind of reminds you that, like, there is this whole other universe out there, and this other being has seen a different part of this universe than I have. Yeah. And I mean, just the opportunity to share, like that inner dimension. Yeah. To share the inner sciences with someone else. Yeah. To become closer as well. I think the reason that people pair bond so often is because we innately have this desire to merge with the other, to become a single being. Right. And in a way, spiritually, we can do that. Yes. Yeah, totally. So, unfortunately, to keep this thing in the timing that we like, I think we're going to have to start wrapping this up. Let's do that. Yeah, but and I guess the last thing that I just want to say on that is anything we talk about in this show, we're not being prescriptive. Okay. No. Like, you don't have to do any of it. None of this is absolute. No. Right. Like there's the things that I was taught do not apply to everybody. Okay. And that's all right. That doesn't mean what I was taught is better. It's just different. That's all. And so, you can, one of the most important things within mysticism is learning your own practice. And the real key is pleasure. Like, that's the key to all of this. And so, that's different in some ways for everybody. Yeah. And I think the Wiccans really get this right, that like spirituality, you just have to find your own practices. Like you were saying, you have to find what feels right for you. And that expresses itself uniquely in each individual. Right. So, again, we'll get into so many of these subjects. We'll dive deeper into other things, but I hope that this was a nice taste, a teaser of what's to come. And Log Bomer for us was a great time. Yes, happy Log Bomer, everyone. I hope you all had semen on your face. Well, you did. Woo! We restored part of the universe. We did. Oh, that was so beautiful. We saved the day, Brian. Nobody knew, and that's okay, right? Hey, we're the heroes behind the scenes. Right. Pray in secret. And like the Baal Shem Tov said, sex is prayer. So
All right. I think that's a beautiful note to end on.
Yes,
and
beautiful.
We'll leave it at that, and we will see all of you on the next episode of Sexoterica. Woo!